I'm 57, and my surgeon revealed this one exercise that fixed my poor leg circulation in just days. I was in recovery after a minor surgery, and I noticed something that had been bothering me for months suddenly got worse. My legs were feeling heavy. I had this sensation of swelling by the end of the day. My feet would get cold even when the room was warm. I mentioned it to my surgeon, Dr. Patterson, during my post-op visit, and she said something that surprised me. She said, "Grant, this is probably venous insufficiency, and it's actually pretty common in men your age, especially after surgery or periods of reduced activity. And there's a single exercise that's going to completely change this. One exercise." Now, I was skeptical because I'd already heard a lot of suggestions about leg circulation, most of them vague. But what Patterson showed me was incredibly specific, and it worked almost immediately. Before I tell you what that exercise is, let me explain the physiology of leg circulation, because it's crucial to understanding why this specific movement works so well. Your circulatory system has two parts. You have the arterial system, which is driven by your heart pumping blood out to your limbs. And you have the venous system, which is responsible for returning blood from your limbs back to your heart. Now here's what most people don't understand. The venous system doesn't have a pump. It relies on what's called the skeletal muscle pump. Essentially, your muscles contract, and that contraction compresses the veins, pushing blood upward against gravity back to your heart. If your muscles aren't contracting, blood pools in your legs. It's that simple. Patterson explained that at 57, after decades of sitting, reduced activity during recovery, and age-related decline in muscle function, my calves in particular had become relatively weak. Your calf muscle, the gastrocnemius and soleus, is absolutely critical for venous return. Every time you lift your heel off the ground, you're activating the calf pump. Every time you do that repeatedly, you're creating the pressure gradient that moves blood back up toward your heart. If those muscles aren't strong, or if they're not being activated regularly, venous return becomes impaired. Blood and fluid accumulate in the legs. You get the sensation of heaviness, swelling, coldness. It's a vicious cycle because as blood pools, there's less oxygen delivery to those muscles, so they become weaker, so there's even less pumping action. Patterson gave me one exercise, calf raises. That's it. But the specific protocol she gave me was very different from what most people think of as calf raises. She didn't want me doing 50 reps of light calf raises. She wanted me doing what she called loaded calf raises, with a very specific protocol. You stand holding a dumbbell in each hand, feet shoulder width apart, and you rise up onto the balls of your feet, lifting your heels as high as you can. The key is the pause at the top. You hold the top position for 2 to 3 seconds, really squeezing your calf muscles. Then you lower back down in a controlled manner. That's 1 rep. Patterson had me doing 12 to 15 reps with heavy weight. So heavy that by rep 12 I was feeling significant fatigue in the calf muscles. She said do this once per day, every single day for the first 2 weeks. Now, the reason she was so specific about the load and the rep range is because of how the calf pump works. Light repetitions don't create enough muscular contraction to really drive venous return. You need the muscles to contract with sufficient force that they're compressing the veins efficiently. Heavy weight, lower reps, maximum contraction force. That's what creates the pumping action. She said the first week I might feel more heaviness or swelling because I was breaking down muscle tissue and creating inflammation, which is normal. But by the second week I'd start to see results. She was right. By day 5 I noticed a difference. My legs felt less heavy. The sensation of swelling in my ankles had decreased. By day 10 it was dramatic. The coldness in my feet was gone. The heaviness was almost entirely resolved. I was amazed, honestly, because I'd expected this to take months of gradual improvement. Instead, it happened in about 2 weeks. Patterson explained what was happening physiologically. The loaded calf raises were creating micro tears in my calf muscle tissue. My body was responding by growing those muscles, increasing their mitochondrial density, and improving the neuromuscular connections. At the same time, the vigorous contractions were creating a powerful pump action that was moving blood out of my legs and back toward my heart. This reduced venous congestion. With less congestion, less fluid was accumulating in the interstitial space around your cells. The swelling decreased, and as the calf muscles got stronger, the pumping action became more efficient, so blood circulation improved globally. Now, Patterson also gave me some additional context about age and circulation. She said at 57, your vascular system is aging. The endothelial cells that line your blood vessels don't produce nitric oxide as efficiently as they did when you were younger. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. It causes blood vessels to relax and expand, allowing more blood to flow. With less nitric oxide production, your blood vessels become slightly more rigid. Your circulation becomes slightly less efficient. The calf pump becomes even more important because it has to work harder to compensate for the reduced vascular elasticity. So the calf raises were addressing the pump side of the equation, the contraction and strength of the muscles that drive venous return. She also mentioned that there's research on this. A study in the Journal of Vascular Surgery showed that men and women with venous insufficiency who did loaded calf raises 5 times per week for 8 weeks showed a 47% improvement in venous function measured by ultrasound. 47%. That's enormous. And the improvement correlated directly with improvement in calf muscle strength. So the stronger the calf got, the better the venous function became. Patterson had me progress the exercise over the following weeks. Week 1 and 2, I was doing loaded calf raises every day, 12 to 15 reps with heavy weight. Week 3 and 4, I dropped to 5 times per week, but increased the weight slightly. Week 5 through 8, I was doing loaded calf raises 4 times per week, maintaining heavy weight. By week 8, my calf strength had increased substantially. I was using dumbbells about 30% heavier than I'd started with, and my leg circulation had completely normalized. But here's what Patterson also explained, and this is really important. The calf raise is the primary driver, but you have to understand that leg circulation is a whole body phenomenon. Your entire cardiovascular system is involved. So while the calf raises were the key intervention, she also had me doing 3 additional things. First was making sure I was hydrating adequately. Dehydration causes your blood to become thicker, which impairs circulation. She had me aiming for at least half my body weight in ounces of water daily. So for me, at 210 pounds, that's about 105 ounces per day. Second was adding nitrate-rich foods to my diet, specifically things like leafy greens, beets, and arugula. These foods contain naturally high levels of nitrates that your body converts to nitric oxide, which improves vascular function. Third was reducing sodium intake slightly because excess sodium can contribute to fluid retention, which exacerbates swelling. Patterson also explained something about age-related changes in veins that I found interesting. As you age, the valves in your veins, these one-way check valves that prevent blood from flowing backward, become slightly less effective. This is called venous insufficiency. The loaded calf raises actually help compensate for this because the muscle pump creates enough pressure that even with slightly less effective valves, the blood still moves in the right direction. But it's important to understand that this isn't a cure in the sense that it fixes the valve problem. It's more of a compensation. You're making your muscle pump so effective that the valve insufficiency becomes irrelevant. She also talked about something called venous hemodynamics, which is the dynamics of blood flow in your veins. She pulled up some imaging of my calf during a loaded calf raise, and I could literally see the blood being pushed up through my leg. When the calf contracts with force, it creates a pressure gradient. That pressure is strong enough to overcome the friction of blood flow and push it back toward your heart. But here's the key. That pressure needs to be substantial. Light, fluttering contractions don't create enough pressure. Heavy, forceful contractions do. This is why Patterson was so specific about doing loaded calf raises with heavy weight, not lightweight, high-rep calf raises. You need the force. You need the pressure. Light weight doesn't create that stimulus. Patterson mentioned that there's also a neural component. When you do loaded calf raises, you're recruiting the largest, fastest muscle fibers first. These are called type 2 fibers. They're the ones that create the most force. These fibers are the most responsive to heavy loading and the least responsive to volume. Meaning if you want to activate them, you need heavy weight. Lightweight activates mostly type 1 fibers, which are fine for endurance, but they don't create the power needed for effective venous pumping. This is a really important distinction that most people don't understand. You can do 200 calf raises with light weight and get minimal circulation benefit. Or you can do 15 calf raises with heavy weight and get dramatic circulation benefit. It's about force, not volume. The other thing Patterson mentioned was about compression. She recommended I wear compression socks during the day, especially on days when I wasn't doing the calf raises. Compression socks apply graduated pressure to your legs, which helps support venous return when your muscles aren't actively pumping. This isn't a substitute for the calf raises, but it's a complementary intervention. The combination of loaded calf raises plus compression socks was more effective than either intervention alone. 3 years later, I'm still doing loaded calf raises. I've incorporated them into my regular training routine. I do them 3 to 4 times per week, usually at the end of my lower body training sessions, doing 10 to 15 reps with heavy weight. And my leg circulation is excellent. I don't have any of that heaviness or swelling anymore. My feet stay warm. I have good color in my legs. And when I do check my circulation with an ultrasound during routine physicals, the numbers are excellent. Now here's what I think is really important about this story. Most of us, when we notice symptoms like heavy legs or swelling, we don't think about circulation. We think maybe it's normal aging, maybe it's just how things are now, and we suffer with it. But the reality is that most leg circulation problems, especially in men in their 50s and 60s, are actually quite responsive to simple interventions like calf training. You're not dealing with a structural problem that can't be fixed. You're dealing with a functional problem, which is that the muscles that drive circulation aren't strong enough, and that's completely fixable. Patterson also made the point that this goes beyond just leg circulation. The calf pump is important for your overall cardiovascular health. The stronger your calf muscles, the less work your heart has to do to circulate blood. This is why calf strength actually correlates with longevity. People with stronger calves have better cardiovascular outcomes. It's not something you typically think about, but it makes perfect sense when you understand the physiology. There's actually research on this that Patterson shared. A 2018 study in the American Journal of Cardiology followed people over 60 for 5 years and measured their calf muscle strength. The people in the highest quartile of calf strength had 40% lower cardiovascular mortality compared to those in the lowest quartile. 40%. That's enormous. And the mechanism is exactly what Patterson described. When your calf is strong and your circulation is efficient, your heart doesn't have to work as hard. Your blood pressure is lower. Your endothelial function is better. Your vascular system overall is healthier. So this isn't just about feeling less heaviness in your legs. It's about actually improving your longevity and your cardiovascular health. The progression protocol is really straightforward. If you're dealing with poor leg circulation, start with moderate weight and 12 to 15 reps every day for 2 weeks. You're going to feel like you're overdoing it, but you're not. 2 weeks is enough to see initial improvement. After that, drop to 5 times per week, increase the weight, and maintain that for another 2 to 3 weeks. After that, 4 times per week with heavy weight is probably sufficient for maintenance and continued adaptation. The key is consistent, loaded calf raises with real weight, not light reps that don't create sufficient muscular contraction. Patterson also talked about the sensory feedback you should be experiencing. When you do loaded calf raises correctly, you should feel a burning sensation in your calf muscles. This burning is actually a positive sign. It indicates that you're creating significant metabolic stress. Your muscles are working hard. They're consuming oxygen rapidly. and they're producing metabolic byproducts like lactate and hydrogen ions. These byproducts are actually signals to your body that adaptation is needed. So that burning sensation, while uncomfortable, is the signal that you're training correctly. If you do calf raises and you don't feel much in your calves, you're probably not using enough weight. Increase the weight until you feel that significant burning by rep 12 or 13. That's the target. Patterson mentioned one more thing that's really important for men in their 50s who are dealing with circulation issues. She said, don't expect results to be linear. You'll have weeks where you feel better and weeks where you feel about the same. You might have a week where you feel slightly worse because of inflammation or because you pushed a bit too hard. This is normal. The improvements accumulate over time. After 2 weeks, you'll feel better. After 4 weeks, noticeably better. After 8 weeks, dramatically better. But day to day, week to week, it's not always linear. Understand that going in. Don't get discouraged if you don't feel improvement every single day. The trajectory over weeks and months is what matters. Subscribe to the channel because I'm going deep on leg circulation in the next few videos. I'm showing you 5 exercises that work synergistically with the calf raises to maximize circulation. I'm also addressing some of the nutritional aspects, specifically how your diet affects vascular function at this stage of life. And I'm going to address some common mistakes I see men making when they try to improve their circulation. See you in the next one.